Hi guys, this is Will from I Think That Happened, and I just wanted to let you guys know that this week's episode is brought to you by us, because that's kind of what we're dealing with right now. We're just, Ray and I work full-time jobs, so we just thought we'd start a Patreon, and if you guys want to subscribe to that, feel free. We're gonna use that to pivot or not necessarily pivot, but try to make more content for you guys. But for now, if you want to just subscribe just to support, that would be awesome too. We love to make this content for you guys, even though we've only made, this is our second episode. It feels great. So if you guys like that stuff, our socials will be linked in the description. The Patreon will be linked in the description, and then probably vice versa. That being said, for incentives and extra content and whatnot for the Patreon, right now we're not fully focused on that just quite yet, only because we're so new, but also don't feel like you have to. Obviously, we're new. We're trying to just make the best content we can for you guys. So if you can, you can. If not, no worries. We'll still make that free good for you guys. We'll fucking let it rock, you know what I mean? So we're gonna make some great shit, and I hope you guys like it. I got our socials linked in the description, and I think you guys are really gonna enjoy this video. All right, peace. All right, welcome back. This is Will.
And this is Ray.
And this is I Think That Happened.
Today we're going to be analyzing the movie Happy Feet.
That would be correct.
We're going to be dissecting every
scene, every single
character.
second of it. No, but today we're going to be talking about Antarctic voyages.
Antarctic.
And their many qualms, we'll say, before any crazy shit happens already. It's pretty wild.
So we both picked out just a couple specific voyages and expeditions to share with you guys.
Yeah. So we'll start out with Ray. You had one.
Yeah, so the existence of Antarctica was first proposed by the Greeks. They nailed that one.
Dope.
Got it.
Sick.
And then
they were like, yeah, it exists.
Yep. And then it was first circumnavigated in 1773 by James Cook, who is a scumbag.
The Cook Islands, is that him? Okay.
Yeah, named after him. He's a huge scumbag.
That makes sense.
Not going to let him get away with that. I don't want to give him credit.
I'm sure most of these guys were pretty bad.
Honestly, yeah.
I wonder.
But we're just going to shit on James Cook.
Yeah, fuck that guy.
And then Antarctica was officially discovered in 1820 by Thaddeus von Bellingshausen and his crew.
Okay, that's a sick name. Offer if that's dope.
It's during a Russian expedition. That name doesn't sound very Russian.
Yeah, that does not sound Russian at all. What the hell?
But as it turns out, the continent was likely discovered. The first humans to reach the Antarctic waters and possibly the continent were the Polynesians and Polynesian sailors.
Hell yeah. Okay.
And the evidence, quote, evidence of this comes from a Maori oral tradition. So there's really no...
So just talking?
Yeah,
okay.
Exactly.
Damn, I feel like shit, but what does that mean, I wonder?
It's it's stories that
are
just
telling
down from generation to generation.
Okay, that makes way more sense.
And I said,
I feel like a dick.
No, you're good. Like I said, recently this is coming to light, but it's actually not news to the Maori people, of course.
They were just doing that. That's just what they were doing. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, they've been sharing this story for generations and generations. There's a New Zealand researcher named Dr. Priscilla Wahey who said, quote, "We didn't discover this, it's a known narrative."
Okay.
So it's only news to white people.
Right.
The Western world. So oral traditions like this were sometimes just told as stories or even sometimes sung.
Right. Okay.
Mm-hmm. So in this specific oral tradition, this tale, it basically describes a man that makes a voyage to what he describes as sounding like Antarctic waters or the Antarctic continent.
Okay. It was just described as fat ice mound or
pretty much, yeah.
Okay.
some different like Maori nations have different
Okay.
like have different variations of the story, but they all follow the same narrative that
And those are the
there
people
was
or close by, or what? Maori.
the Maori. They're in New Zealand,
Oh yeah. Okay.
so not too far from Antarctica, but like still, you know,
Oh yeah.
still
okay.
extremely far, but like relatively close compared to.
and compared to us or
Yeah.
anyone else in the world. Yeah. Okay. That's sick.
So yeah, different Maori nations have different variations of the story, but
Okay.
they all still
all
follow pretty much
kinda-
the same narrative that there was a man named Huite Raniora, and he was
Sick name.
possibly the first person to reach Antarctica as early as the 7th century AD.
Oh my god. Imagine being the first guy to get there and you can't tell anybody. You're like,
Right.
you look around, you're like, fuck. Damn. So people
and
are
this
just gonna
is
have to
this
trust
is still like it's still pretty young in the field of like
Oh, right.
academic research. It's like
Yeah, it's
barely
probably
even a
It's
hypothesis.
been pretty hard to hang out there. I figure.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, that makes sense.
I
Fuck.
mean, that's a place where you could die within like
Oh, yeah,
literally
like,
minutes if
yeah.
you don't have like proper
yeah,
gear and
you
stuff.
die of
so.
exposure so quickly. Oh my god. Yeah, it's so a guy just maybe showed up there in the 7th century.
I think so.
Yeah, I wouldn't doubt it. People were doing crazy shit back then.
Yeah, I'm going with it. Like that's around when the Vikings were.
Yeah, they were
making-
sailing. They
yeah.
were hitting the water.
Um,
Tough.
so they say it was as early as possibly the 7th century. The reason for that date is not the way they got that date isn't really reliable. It's I forgot
okay.
exactly how they got it, but they like counted the number of generations between like historical events between now and this story or something like that, and that's like based on them assuming that each generation is 25 years. So
Oh, okay. So they had just a general assumption on how things went and like just like time or whatever.
still it's somewhere like that would still be somewhere like around 1,000 years before we have agreed Antarctica was
Okay.
discovered in 1820. So that would be
makes
pretty
sense.
crazy if it was discovered that long ago.
That'd be nuts.
So this comes from a story, like I said. The major source that we have for this story is a 19th century writer named Stevenson Percy Smith. And he kind of wrote the only English translation of the story, but even his translation is not
It's a little
really
shoddy.
Yeah, it's a little shoddy. It's not great.
Okay.
Dude's kind of he describes this guy having a ship with a keel made of human bones, which
my
is just
God.
ridiculous. And he also describes him finding a walrus there, which don't exist anywhere in the southern hemisphere. So
Just bullshitting.
yeah, we can't really like take
Like
this,
trust him.
Yeah.
Okay. No, that I would take that as.
Yeah, but overall, like the story basically says that this man, Huite Raniora, was a man that lived in the 7th century, and he led a crew of some odd amount of men and a few boats to Antarctic waters.
What
and-
guy was like thinking like, I'm gonna just lie. I'm gonna just be like the first guy to be like, yeah, no, that sounds believable. I got there.
Right.
That's it. That's all he said.
Right.
This other guy I know, he got there, like way long ago. Yep, that was how he got there. And then you're like, what the hell? You don't question it until after. You're like, what?
Yeah.
We don't even have. We have no shoes. How'd you get there? That's funny.
But this guy, so the story goes that in Maori, that Raniora sat in his Waranui, or the Maori meeting house, where he made plans for this voyage to the Southern Ocean. So you can kind of picture this stoic man,
Yeah.
like sitting, staring off into
In
space,
his-
pondering his previous adventures.
Right.
and
He's like, I must plan
Yes.
for my next.
I know what I have
My
to
next
do.
quest awaits.
Pretty much like plotting to go to the fucking moon.
That's so dope. Because like that was the moon to them back
Yeah.
then, like a far off land. You know, they didn't know. That's so fucking cool.
But so basically, like the story says that he got on this boat. I forgot what the name of the boat was, but it had a name. It was like his prize vessel, and he describes the place as being cold. They didn't have a word for frozen, so what he said was the water resembled the arrowroot, which when ground up is like white powder. He says that there's
didn't even
deceitful
know.
animals that dive to deep depths.
Oh, okay.
Like
deceitful.
seals or something.
Yeah, seals or penguins or something probably.
Yeah, penguins probably.
That's pretty wild.
He describes like
if that's true.
white rocks towering out of the sea, so like ice caps
yeah,
and like
like ice
glaciers
caps.
and shit. It never says anything about them actually like going to shore and like landing on shore or anything.
They're probably like, we're good.
Exactly. Like they probably saw that and said, "Fuck."
Yeah,
that.
they weren't white. They knew. They knew.
So it said that before his journey, he went to the Riuwaka Resurgence in what is now Karuangi National Park in New Zealand, and it's here that he rested and spiritually prepared for the journey. So this place, I think, is like just some national park in New Zealand that has like beautiful springs and like ponds and stuff.
I would love that. I would go there to ponder.
Yeah, and then he set sail from there, and there's really not much English translation other than that guy Percy Smith or whatever.
Right. Then he started talking bullshit in his native tongue. He was like, "This is the real shit."
Right, like
this
the
is
keel made of human bones. This is kind of like no.
It's like no way, dude,
way.
no way.
So really, like this story. It's mythology. It's not like
it's
meant to be
more so like just a like a myth or legend.
Exactly. It's not meant to like be taken as like real history.
Okay.
Which often that's kind of what mythology is. I mean, there's often like truths to a lot of mythology. It's really just a way for people to like make sense and explain actual events that happened but weren't really recorded. Like we know like this major event happened, but we they don't know like the who and
like,
how.
Yeah, now it's like you just go do it. You look it up or whatever. But
Yeah. Like
for
we can
them,
write shit down now.
For them back then, it was like so hard to ration certain things. They were, what the hell?
Exactly.
What is this?
Yeah.
They just was like, oh, it's not real. Or they would hate people for it or whatever.
Like the flood myth in the Bible, like that could have been inspired by like a real event, like a real great flood that maybe didn't flood the whole world, but flooded somebody's world. Like flooded like somebody's what they knew as their world, and that got passed down from generation to generation.
Christians, get fucked. No,
we're here for you, Christians.
We're here. It's all right. But
so naturally, a lot of people try to debunk this because, like I said, it's not an accepted fact, and it's still young in the field of academic research. It's barely even a hypothesis.
Just some guy was talking. Some scholars like, write that down real quick.
Yeah, like it's been pieced together through like gray literature, which is like unofficial academic articles that haven't been like peer reviewed,
right?
And then just oral tradition. There's literally
no. Cook. You said Cook was originally talking, or who else was? Who was the guy that was originally talking about it?
God, what was his name?
Cook was just the first guy that may have got there. You're saying?
Yeah. So
that was okay.
Cook circumnavigated the continent,
right.
But they're not sure if he actually reached it or not.
Right, reached it there. Okay.
Good, because he's a fucking scumbag.
Yeah, fuck that guy. He got some islands, bro.
I watched like a YouTube video of somebody trying to debunk this hypothesis, and the first point that the guy made was that it was too far. So you could argue that the Polynesians were like one of the most capable and like superior seafaring people in history.
Right.
I mean, they made voyages that were more than 2,500 miles.
Holy fuck.
On some occasions, and of course they knew the Pacific well, so they could have easily made stops like all the way. They didn't have to make one straight shot.
We know where McDonald's is, dude. It's right there. Fuck you, dude.
It's right there in Christchurch.
Yeah, Christchurch got some mean McDonald's, some Mackies.
The Dons.
I think they call it. No, wait, that's fucking Australia. I think they call it Maccas.
Maccas.
Aussies, tell us if we're right. All right.
And then he also made a point that it was too cold, and like.
Yeah, that's fair.
It is, but I feel like that kind of comes from like this, like romanticized notion that they only had grass skirts.
Yeah,
and,
like they probably had some wool. They
knew what the cold was, and they knew what fur was. They knew what exposure was.
I'm pretty sure that like brain knows negative stimuli bad. You know, you're like, no, this isn't right. I don't like this. You get out of the cold. You're like, I fucking hate this.
Yeah,
you know?
And they're used to like tropical climates,
right.
So like that is a good point. Like,
yeah. So how the fuck were they there? But anything's possible.
And there is like possible evidence for Polynesian people to have been settling in sub-Antarctic islands.
Whoa.
So I know that's not Antarctica, but it's kind of like
that's right there though. They were
like hey, if they made it that far, they could have made it.
They could have pushed a little. Yeah, I'm sure.
Like in the Antipodes Islands, there was a vessel found in the 1800s that I think they were British sailors found it, and they described it as being like possibly a Maori sea canoe.
Okay.
And they ripped it apart and used it as fuel.
Dickheads. But I'm sure they probably needed it. Because as we come to find out, a lot of the time, ships get fucking stuck in this water.
And then they also like will make a point that the Southern Ocean is too rough for them to make a voyage like that on the canoe. Which, like, if you look up videos of like the Drake Passage, like like severe storms.
Okay, I have seen. Yeah, that's where you'll just see massive waves and shit.
Yeah,
and,
like battleships being lifted into the air.
You sent me a clip, didn't you?
Yeah. That one of the Drake Passage.
I was like, oh my fuck.
Yeah, that whole like warship completely like gets air and then slams onto the water.
Dude, I had seen that video before because I was like. Like, dude, that guy, it gave me like the stuff, you know, when you go over like a hill, like, you go, right before you drop, you're like, oh fuck, oh my god.
I don't think after watching videos, like, I've never like been out on the ocean, so after watching videos like that, I don't know if I could handle it.
I don't ever want to, I don't have any desire to be on a boat.
I get motion sickness. So
I
get seasick.
I'd get sick, or I'd perish. I'd perish so easily. I'd be one of the first. I'd just be like, I'm gone. But boats not my jam, not my thing. Yeah, I definitely agree.
So yeah, being too rough. Honestly, though, I will still argue that the Polynesians were possibly the most capable seafaring people. I was gonna
say it is possible that they were the most capable. If they didn't reach it, they 100%. They might have gotten close.
At least to like Antarctic waters or something.
I'm sure.
So, and then like they compared them to like the Vikings. Like, well, the Vikings did it this way, so they wouldn't have been able to do it if the Vikings did this. I'm like, why are we comparing them to Vikings?
Yeah, like, they're not even the same. And I
feel like that's just kind of continues that Western narrative, like that we got to compare them to like the Europeans. Well, the Europeans did it this way. It's like
no.
these people were
wildly different cultures.
Yeah,
you know.
Like, I don't think the Vikings or the Phoenicians or like the Portuguese or Spanish have shit on the Polynesians. Honestly.
No, probably not.
And there was a author from like the 19th century that spent time in New Zealand and was like studying the Maori people and their like how they sailed and stuff like that. He literally said that the Maori crossed the ocean as easily as Europeans might cross a lake.
Oh my god, Jesus.
So
to think of them just casually just strolling across the ocean, just like, what's up? What you guys say?
Like, I picture those waves in the Southern Ocean that battleship came crashing down on, but honestly, I could imagine like one of those sea canoes just riding over, which is a pretty badass to think about.
Yeah, you think about just some guy fucking. Oh my god, he's just fucking battling waves just in a canoe. Fuck.
And they did everything that the Europeans did, but without like instruments, without like navigation tools and stuff. They did it all from their
they were like, the sun looks hot today. It's probably that's north. I think that's like 38 degrees latitude, probably. I don't know. They were like just doing,
and like the stars, they used the stars
true.
And the sun and sea currents and stuff.
I was gonna say waves probably helped a little bit too.
Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, I think I want to believe that this is true. That the Polynesians
it's a sick like a narrative to be like, dude, these people just. They were just there. They already found that shit like way long ago. You guys are late. It is cool. I hope that that's the truth, because fucking all these, I mean, most of the expeditions they were just disasters.
Yeah. Like. And they were so late, like in like the 1800s and stuff.
Yeah. You're like, oh, that seems late.
And the reason I picked this topic was because at first I was like, when was Antarctica discovered? It was like 1820, and I was like, really?
That's it?
Like humans permanently settled Australia 60,000 years ago, but you're telling me
crazy.
That they didn't find Antarctica until 200 years ago?
Right. Like, I think more people probably knew about it, and then they were just like admiring from a distance, kind of like we do. Like, no one wants to go there, I think, but enough people probably were like, yeah. I want to find what's on that big ass white land over there. Let's go see.
Yeah.
And then they got there. They're like, how the fuck? How do we get out?
And then people have said that the story might not be made up, but instead of him describing Antarctica, he might have just been describing icebergs. because there have been
Okay.
icebergs that have floated
Just
all the
big
way
ass
north.
icebergs,
Yeah.
probably. Okay.
Or somebody said that they might be describing sub-Antarctic islands.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, I guess they probably were like they might have been big enough to where they were just like maybe this is it.
Yeah, because to them, like being native to like tropical climates,
They were like,
that would
this
still
is
be really
fucked.
worth like passing down that
Yeah.
story like generation to
I
generation.
would tell everybody.
The most interesting one I like found was that somebody said that he might have been describing a pumice field from an underwater eruption. That like the pumice floats to the surface and it's miles and miles of like pumice floating on the water and it looks like snow. So I mean that's
yeah, okay. Wow, dude, that kind of throws you for a loop. That makes you wonder.
Yep. So you know maybe this man like Huite Rangiora was not a real like individual that lived and died in the 7th century,
but maybe was some. Maybe he was. Maybe we can believe it.
Yeah, exactly.
Because if we can believe that, whoever.
I think it's worth giving credit to these oral traditions.
Of course,
least.
Oral
like,
tradition.
Just because they don't have writing, like they didn't write the stuff down, doesn't mean that.
Yep, prehistory.
That the word isn't reliable. So.
Yeah, most definitely. I think that prehistory is it's the most valuable thing to current history itself, because obviously it's just,
because when we look at like these oral traditions, we're really looking at ourselves.
Yeah, of course. And in different ways, sometimes bad ways. Sometimes we're like, whoa, that was cool. We just did some cool shit. That's awesome. And there's like kind of back and forth with that. There's always good and bad.
And then somebody has like a boat made of human bones. And
right. Yeah. You're like, what the hell? Who had this fucking boat, this little bone boat? Let's go find it. We need to find this bone boat.
The bone boat.
The bone boat.
This just in, bone boat.
This just in, bone boat found off coast of, I don't know, where would they find the bone
boat?
Australia.
So yeah, that's what I've got for the Polynesians. There's like literally no archaeological like material to work with. It's just
pure
oral tradition.
Okay.
So believe it if you want to, believe it if you don't. I'm choosing to believe it because I think that's badass.
That is dope.
And I refuse to believe that Antarctica was not discovered until 200 years ago.
Yeah, like there's no fucking shot that no one sailed by that and thought, whoa, hey.
Yeah.
Like there had to have been some people before that, at least showing up, Yeah. And if they pulled by and said, okay, we saw it, kind of thing, maybe. But I'm pretty sure there had to have been people before 200 years ago. It's got to be.
Mm-hmm.
So I could definitely see that. Maybe he embellished the years a little bit, but.
Yeah, like that date might not be reliable, but I'm sure it's still somewhat
it's probably
in the ballpark of being hundreds of years before these white guys did.
Yeah,
like,
yeah, right. Because I'm sure somebody had to have been curious even before before we were like I want to say civilized today, or what we know as civilized, but it's just like more modernized. You know? Like we had better boats, better methods of transportations. We knew more about the Earth and shit like that.
Mm-hmm.
But
like I said in the beginning, like the Greeks hypothesized the existence of Antarctica.
Like
so these people that live much closer to it, who knew the Pacific really well,
probably pretty common. They're probably that's Antarctica.
Somebody would have had that like
land.
Somebody would have felt really drawn to like go. And,
you
check
think
it out.
somebody? It was probably because we were able to control the narrative, and we were like, oh hey, no, let's just tell everybody we found it.
That's a good point.
That's probably what we did, but I don't know. Or I would say we as like British people or whatever.
I'm sure James Cook and them probably were told about it by the Maori.
Like, that's us, guys. We did that.
Yep.
No, you didn't, fuckers.
Scumbag, dirtbag.
So I choose to believe that most of the guys that we read about, explorers, probably bad guys, but I don't know. They were just curious, and I think they were curious at first, and then it might have stumbled into something bad.
And a lot of them were just kind of a product.
That's not for every,
product of their time.
Explorer, but yeah, exactly. It could be a product of they very well could have just been bad dudes, or it could have just been different, different culturally,
Like surely people in the future are gonna look back at us and
be like, oh my god,
scumbags.
Those guys. Yeah. Ugh. You said that?
I hope
my
not.
gosh.
I'm trying not to be a scumbag.
Right, exactly. Like, you try your hardest, but you can only hope that somebody's not going to be like, oh, this guy, I hate this guy.
Yeah.
But All right. Well, I'm gonna hop into our first semi-modern, I guess, expedition.
I'm excited to hear this one because this one's like infamous.
This one is pretty big. If you've watched anything on Antarctic, or even heard about it, you might have heard about this story probably. He was one of the first guys to get there. This guy goes by the name of Ernest Shackleton. So this expedition, it was important, but it was late because it they wanted to get out of there way because it was a race. They were trying to race to the South Pole.
So this was like wasn't this like during like what they call like the heroic age of Antarctic exploration?
Yeah. It's very like I even put down like it's very heroism is in my first fucking sentence of the it ends my first sentence. So it's one of the words. So they really thought of themselves as heroic. You know what I mean? And so they started late in their eyes. They were like, fuck. They're like, we started late. They heard that the other guys pushed off, so the Ernest Shackleton and his men, they were like, damn. And so they started in 1914. They started sailing there. And they would not come back for 3 years. And we come to find out because they got stuck down there.
Of course, yeah.
So, Ernest Shackleton
It's
was he's a 40-year-old, just a regular old guy, ship captain. He had a crew of 27 men, and this journey would change the course of their lives for sure. Their ship was called the Endurance, I believe. On a day in December, that's when they pushed off. Oh no. That's when they got there as early as December of 1914 in the Antarctic waters. But I don't know if these were British explorers, and they how they got there was they sailed south through the Weddell Sea, and then down to the Antarctic Sea. And their goal was to be the first to achieve an overland crossing of Antarctica on foot. And you hear that, you're like, what the fuck? I couldn't do that now. Like, I couldn't do that in my best shape.
I feel like most of the continent is just completely flat.
Yeah, dude. And, like, I don't even know. You could tell me that Antarctica was 10,000 miles. It's probably bigger than that. I'm just going to look it up. I looked up big. We're looking at a cool 5.2 million square miles. That's nuts. It's pretty fucking crazy. Yeah. So you got to think like these guys were sailing through some shit.
So didn't you say that he wanted to do this because somebody had reached the South Pole? And
yeah, they were trying to get to the South Pole specifically. There was a race because they knew it was there at this point. They were like, we want to be the first people to get there. But
so nobody had reached it yet.
Nobody had reached it yet.
Oh, okay.
So, but they knew this guy, Sir Robert Scott, was on his way there. They wanted to beat him, but I don't think they did. Partly because of what happened, I believe, but he might have been like way ahead of him. I'm not entirely sure how far. And they wanted to be the first people to just like see the South Pole like with their eyes. Probably not like as we talked about. They might have not been, but probably the best bet was these guys maybe. And he was a famed Shackleton was a famed explorer at this time. He was considered a rival of this guy, Sir Robert Scott. He's considered a rival. So
it's like the space race.
Yeah, so they were going at it, And Shackleton sort of fell behind, and he couldn't reach the pole because a lot of the experts say that Shackleton's expeditions were thrown together last minute, little money, and they were just like kind of purely driven by like morale and just kind of
like seeking glory.
Yeah, just want that fame, that fame of oh my God, we found it. We were the ones that found it. You know what I mean? And so they do that. But when they get down to the sea, right? It doesn't go as planned. So most of the time, life on the Endurance was pretty good. Shackleton kept him busy. He's a very duty-oriented captain. He's super like, just go. You know, like let's get all this shit. Let's go. You know, he wanted to keep everything neat in order.
No time to waste.
No time to waste. We're it's a race. We're going. And they had 50 dogs as well, and that's important for later. And they were to act as sled teams for crossing. Frank Wild was the captain. Sorry, Frank Wild was the captain, and Shackleton was just leading the expedition. Mm-hmm. He was just like kind of the head of the expedition, but it was another guy's boat, I guess. So he's basically just a second in command. So that's what I wrote. But
he's like the main character pretty much.
Yeah.
He comes out on top ultimately.
Yeah. Well, so Frank Wild is a second in command. Shackleton was the guy, but I think that he just like designated. I don't know if I just rewrote it, and maybe I meant co-captain. Or something like that. But I'm pretty sure they had said like that he wasn't even like. I think he was just like even higher. He was just like, I'm just the guy that's on the boat that owns the boat.
Just wanted to make sure there were lots of pictures of him there.
Yeah, right. He's like pointing at the
penguins.
Yeah, right. Some say that he was almost dependent on Frank Wild. So they were kind of like joined. They say they could speak / communicate to one another purely by look alone. Sort of like we've been doing this whole time.
Yeah.
They don't realize.
I was about to say we should just do that with this podcast.
Yeah. We've been citing insane Churchill readings and just purely thought experiments.
And if you guys haven't picked up on it, it's just because you're not.
That's all I gotta say. Ridiculous. You can't see through audio yet. Fake. Okay, so they were adamant. They were like, dude, I don't know if we're gonna get through this. But the crew stuck to it. They were like, if Shackleton's saying that it's good, we'll do it. You know, we'll go. We'll keep at it. They said that it moved slow for the rest of December 1914, and by January 20th, 1915, the Endurance was all but stuck. So
how did it get stuck? Was it like
it was on the water, and they just came to a halt. I think as time went on, they just came to a halt or something like that, and just froze there.
Oh, the sea ice had them crunched.
So they were all pretty sure they were going to die, but they had faith in the boss. That's what they called it, the boss. You know, they called Shackleton the boss. He was there. That's the boss, you know. Mm-hmm. So they knew that if anyone could get him out of a desperate situation, it was going to be this guy. They knew that. And I was like, damn, okay. So people relied on this guy. People were okay. So for days, they tried to break through this ice into open water per Shackelford's instruction. Shackelford. I put Shackelford. I actually wrote that down.
Really?
That's so funny.
That's
Dale's name and
Rusty
King
Shackelford.
Of the Hill, bro. Rusty Shackelford. Dude, that's so funny. No, but I actually wrote that down. Don't copyright claim this, Mike Judge. So they tried to break through. All right, and we're back. I had to pause real quick. My document was awry. All right. So they got stuck, right? They were trying to break through this ice. Eventually he wanted his men to start pushing the ship backwards towards walls of ice 18 feet in height. And they got less than 400 yards away from open water before the ship stopped again.
Damn.
They were like, no. They saw it and they were like, fuck.
Oh, that's terrible.
Yeah, they were 400 yards away. So on February 4th, on V-Day, 1915, Shaq gives up and the Endurance becomes a station floating in any which way it wants. It's free floating. Because they can't move anywhere, so they're just gonna fucking float. So this whole time, the crew was like, "Damn, we're stuck." They knew, like, it's hard to hide on a boat, you know, hard to hide from what you're going towards on a boat or a plane or something like that. You know what I mean? If something goes bad,
so
you're gonna know.
Did they like kill and eat any penguins or anything? Like,
nah.
I'm curious, like, what were they eating?
Well, they had a lot of. So it says eventually. So they had a lot of biscuits, which they're British, so it might have been cookies, but it might have actually been just bread and water and stuff
just
like that.
Rations.
Yeah, rations. Just simple little stuff like that, and just stuff to kind of tide them. Yeah. So these guys actually like they were playing like soccer outside. Like they were playing football like outside of the ship, like on the ice while their ship is stuck. There's a picture of it, like you can see like in ice, like the ship is stuck and these guys are just playing. They got two goals set or two like things set up, and you know they were kicking the ball. I was like,
I mean, they gotta do something.
Yeah, they had. I wrote down and they had to do
morale.
something. Yeah, they had to keep high spirits. You know, they had to do something. So that's what they did. You know, a lot of them were British. So you know,
dude, some of the pictures from these expeditions. I mean, I might have seen some from that particular one. They're so cool. Like,
oh yeah, it's nuts. It's so nuts. So like something like that. Like I remember seeing this picture in particular. Like I mean, this boat was big. This boat was fucking huge. You know, we talk about like probably a canoe is not gonna get through. This was not a canoe. This was a full vessel.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that they got to. Alrighty. So many of the men grew fond of the dogs that they carried on board. So they were you know, it was pretty, you know, it was easy for these guys to keep morale up because they were just, you know, they had dogs on there, you know, they were playing soccer. Yeah. They were just having a gay old time.
Hold on. Their goal was to cross the continent on foot.
Yeah.
Did they ever even make it like to the continent and like?
Yeah. I don't think so.
At this point,
they're just trying to survive. They're like, I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm good on this. I don't need this. If this is how it is. So, but they began to grow kind of complacent, and eventually their ship got hammered with ice again. So, yeah, at this point, people are like, oh, fuck, like they're like, God damn it, like this guy, like that you can like. Shackleton had heard like, you know, these guys they're starting to get uneasy, you know,
morale's starting to
dip and stuff, and so, but he says his you know they said that his authority was never really questioned even in those times because of how good of a captain or how good of an explorer he was, or just they trusted him that much, you know, maybe he's just that kind of guy. I don't know.
Right, must have just had a natural
charisma about him. And so, you know, they kind of were just like, well, whatever, I guess we'll just hang out. The ship's hold became kind of a lounge or sort of like a hangout spot for these guys, probably the warmest spot. So yeah, many of these men grew fond. That's probably where they grew fond of the dogs. They probably were like, well, let's go visit, you know, these pups we got on board. Yeah. And a lot of them saw these sled dogs as pets until the end of the expedition. And so in April, their complacency got the better of them, and they were not expecting for millions of tons of ice to be hitting and shove it up against them again. By morning, it had grafted to up over 10 feet in some places. So like, they're now just like a entombed in ice. Like, you know, there's 10 feet wall of ice on their ship now. So it was not looking good for these guys to be able to go home.
Yeah.
So by July, the crew is exhausted. This is July, dude. The shit started in December of the last year, and these guys are in July exhausted, and they continue to get assaulted by this ice. They just they're stuck. They can't move. Of course, they're just gonna keep getting hammered by this ice. The pressure from the ice slowly damages the rudder, so they at that point they're genuinely they cannot move.
Mm-hmm.
They can't even move.
Like
the rudders.
They might need like a rescue party.
Yeah, they would have needed at that point. They realized, okay, we're not leaving out of here. Nothing's melting. Mm-hmm. We're not getting out of here. We have to go. So yeah, the pressure from the ice damages the rudder from beyond repair, and they are now truly stranded. At this point, they were about 1,200 miles away from civilization and in no range to call for help, because you're literally in the middle of the worst place on fucking Earth.
Yeah. I think that's probably the worst place.
I would have to agree. I don't think I ever want to go there. I think that's the pure opposite of an enjoyable time.
Yeah.
I'm sure to some people it'd be like, whoa.
Maybe on like a cruise.
Yeah. Like if I could sail by and be like, oh, yeah, I'm good. I'll go back inside now. You know, I'm warm. Yeah, I'm not like these guys. I'm too like, I'm just a young man. I'm a young whippersnapper. All right, and they're all trying to escape with their dogs at this point, because they're like, dude, we need to fucking find a route out of here. Mm-hmm. And Shaq is like, yo, I wrote Shaq. He said, yo, he said, calm down, guys. We're gonna get out of this. I'm gonna get us out of this, okay? I promise. Don't leave. And they had said that Shackleton's son was, I don't know if he was on the boat, but he at least he's been told as saying that the men's odds of surviving, and this is just his son, had said that men's odds at this point of surviving were like 20-1, like bad, like they were terrible odds, you know. You didn't probably need somebody else telling you that to know that, but it was even quoted as somebody saying up. Like,
we don't need to hear that right now.
So they were eating so much crazy shit while they were trapped. They were eating seals and penguins. Okay. So they did end up finding and catching some of these penguins, because they were known about by this point.
Oh, I would.
So they did end up eating some seal and penguins. Yeah.
Especially.
Yeah. Oh yeah, the flavor's right in there. I'm sure. No, I'm sure not. Poor penguins. Happy feet.
You know, some of these like old black and white photos they took, it's kind of hard to distinguish like the penguins from the actual.
Really?
You had to like look twice, like, oh, those are penguins.
Oh, okay. That's not a dude. That's just a penguin. Okay, never mind. They're like 10-foot penguins. That'd be insane. That's kind of scary. Okay. They were, yeah, so at this point, like, all of their food was, like, it was just gone. Like, months continue to go by, and at that point, rations have gone down to one biscuit a day. One biscuit a day and some change, whatever they had.
One penguin a day.
Yeah, one penguin a day.
One seal per
day. Yeah. Yeah, it's one biscuit a day, or if you find food later, you know, like sugar cubes and random shit also is what they would also eat. Eventually they decide it's time to get out of there. Like, we need to go. Like, somebody needs to go and find help. So Shackleton goes. He's like, all right, we're gonna go. But before that, I've got to inform you that they were so hungry on this boat, and well, there were but 2 living creatures on this boat. And I think you can understand where some of these dogs went.
So they're not people, right? They're not about to eat each other.
No.
Okay.
They ate these dogs.
Are they about to eat like the 2 guys that they hate the most?
Right.
So
No.
there's 2 living creatures.
Yeah. 2 people who got them in this fucking situation. You know, they should have. They should have. Probably. That's probably what they should have done. But no. Yikes. They shot and killed some of these dogs.
Yeah, I was wondering if you were
to eat them.
Anything.
So, you know, at this point, they're like, damn, what do we do? At this point, the crew's like, they're solely looking for, you know, the boss. You know, they're looking for the boss to tell them, hey, what do we do? And so he wants to head to Elephant Island on foot. So that was close by, I guess, where they were at. So
they can pretty much just like cross the sea to this island.
Yeah, they were.
Ice.
It was frozen enough to where I'm sure that I mean, they got there at least. It was said that they got there. They headed there for 7 days in a raging Arctic Sea in smallish lifeboats. So they were going just in lifeboats. They were still sailing.
Okay.
I don't know if they carried them or maybe they, you know, I didn't see pictures of that. They didn't have any pictures of that, of the boats, but I think they just I don't know if they, you know, like I said, like kind of pulled them along with them or like along an ice beach or some shit, you know, I don't know, or just sailed along. I don't know. So they did have little boats, but they didn't use them often because obviously the water was frozen, so they couldn't do a whole lot, I think. So a lot of the time they were going without sleep and water and food, you know, because they were like, there's nothing here. The boats were only. Oh, the boat. I said in plural maybe because I wasn't sure if they both had one or. So now that I'm reading this, it seems like they might have only had one because the 23 feet is what they said.
Oh,
it's pretty fucking long.
Yeah.
One person's not carrying that. I had wrote that down, and it wasn't super wide either. So they were just like in this. Almost like a canoe, like you had said earlier. So we can kind of imagine what it was like maybe for some of those guys. If some of those guys, those Polynesian guys had gotten here, maybe this is what it might have looked like.
Yeah, I'm sure you can picture it.
You know,
pretty similar.
so the navigator, so it was him and his navigator, or if that was Frank Wild. I think, I'm not sure what I wrote. I didn't write down who. I think him and Frank Wild had gone. And that's who went. It was either him or just they had a navigator. They never said, but they were such a beast. They knew where they were going, had no map, and they just kept sailing in that direction anyway. So they were going back. I think they were just sailing there. So they probably found it. I think since they were so close, like I said, they were about 400 yards. They might have been able to just walk over to the water and then push off. Yeah. I'm sure that's probably what happened. I didn't even put that together. That's kind of...
That would make sense, though.
Yeah, that makes way more sense. So, you know, they land there at Elephant Island. I'm not sure why it's called this. I probably should have looked that up, but I'm not sure. Might just have been the way it's shaped, probably.
You know, maybe back in those days there were elephants there.
Were maybe
they were
elephants.
hunted to extinction.
Yeah, they're there in that one island. So some say that yeah, okay, so we're getting word now and from sources. Some say Elephant Island got its name from the sighting of elephant seals on the island. So it was the seals that were on the island that looked like elephants. Thank you for our source. That source TM with a trademark on it pending. But yeah, so they were crossing. They got there, and they had to do some mountaineering. And one thing Shackleton was not he was not a mountaineer. He didn't know how to get in and out of those things. I guess.
He was a sea dog.
Yeah, he was more of a sea dog.
Sailor.
Yeah. So, and as they couldn't land on one side of the island due to an operation, which I don't know why they didn't just sail around. Maybe they didn't know, or maybe they just were like, "Oh, there's land right there."
Oh, yeah.
But they or maybe they just couldn't. You know, it was impossible. So the two men. So there were two men with him actually. I had forgotten this. So they had gone up this steep ass mountain, and they're like looking to this guy. They're looking to Shaq for advice. They're like, this is the hardest place that any of them have ever been, and they're still like,
after all that time being stuck on the ship.
Yeah, they were like, oh my god, like this guy was, if there was ever a guy that was gonna do it, it was gonna be this guy, or if it was gonna, you know, push through.
Shaq is the man.
Yeah. And so they had gone up a severely steep slope, and there was no other way around except maybe down. And so the three sat on it a second.
Down is always more dangerous than up. Always.
It is. So can I tell you what they did next?
Yes, please.
They tied themselves together and pushed off into space, plummeting down in a 100-foot mountainside. So they tied themselves together and just went, fuck and just went, woo.
There needs to be a movie about
Dude,
this.
I'm telling you, I read this shit and I was like,
If there isn't already one, there needs
I
to
was
be
listening
one.
to the doc and I'm like, oh my God, what the fuck? How did I not know this? So, they survived. Amazingly, these guys survived. And to have survived is nothing short of a miracle. On May 20th of 1916, three tattered men walk into a whaling station on South George Island. They had survived. Ernest returns. That's Shackleton. Ernest returns to get his men to safety, but Shaq isn't sure and is worried about how many of his men are, still there. Yeah. He wonders if these guys died.
They've all
or
cannibalized.
Not. Yeah. But amazingly, all 20, 23 or 24 guys that were left all survived.
Oh
Nobody died that whole time on that boat. And I think it's insane. In a water as hard, as tough as the Antarctic Sea, and like just in general, like I feel like that is like how easily you can just die. Like we see in history, like what, oh shit, or just even now, like fuck, you can, it sucks. But it's like, these guys, it truly was a miracle, because back then modern medicine was so, far and few, you couldn't find, or, whatever, these guys didn't have, like huge, or, better boats like that we have today.
It seems like pretty primitive compared to like what we have now.
It was very rudimentary at the time, so it was a miracle compared to now, where you might be like, oh, I have a good chance of getting some to safety. I feel like most people these days are pretty ballsy. They'll do it if they want to, because they know now. I think since the knowledge is out there, they know. But that's pretty much where Shaq's story ends. I think he just kind of like lived out the rest of his life, just kind of chilled, did his
hero.
thing. Yeah, and that's all I know on him. Yeah. I don't know what he did previous or after, so I do not know if he was a bad guy, but I hope not. Yeah. He seems like a heroic guy. He seems pretty noble.
I haven't heard anything about him being a bad guy.
Yeah, I hadn't heard, like Cook. I recognize that name, and I'm like, ooh, anyone that's got an island named after there, or some some land named after them.
You got an island named after you. You're probably
not a good guy. But yeah, so that's what I got on Shaq. But yeah, it was, you could say, heroic. Definitely. And we go back to that word a lot. Heroic. It was heroic.
The golden age of Antarctic exploration. So a story that I picked out is kind of related to that one because it was led by a man named Douglas Mawson, who had gone on previous expeditions with Shackleton,
Right. Okay.
which is what inspired him to make this journey.
Okay.
So this is the Australasian expedition, which is a few years before the one that you just told.
Okay.
So this one was led by Douglas Mawson, and it was inspired by his expeditions with Ernest Shackleton. That
That's
done
dope.
in years
So
previous.
yeah, he was inspired so much so that he wanted to do his own thing.
Yeah. So like you said, Shackleton was like a really charismatic guy. And
Yeah.
Really kind of like.
Dude, what if he was like telling him about it, and then he was like, "I'm gonna steal that. I'm gonna totally steal that idea."
Right.
Like I'm gonna do, like he was like, "So I've been thinking about sailing to this southern, there's this southern mass. I'm thinking about really going there." And this guy's like, "I'm gonna fucking write that down."
Yep.
And he goes a few years earlier, maybe. I don't know.
Well,
No.
this one was this expedition was strictly scientific.
Okay, so they were just going there for the
data.
The data.
Yeah,
they
they
weren't
wanted
going
to-
there for notoriety or
No,
anything.
they didn't want
Surely
like the
wanted-
fame or anything
Okay,
like
that's
that.
cool.
Most of the expeditions at that time were all about just first twos, being the first to do this, first to do
Yeah,
that. It was like the
that's-
space race, like
yeah.
you were saying. They wanted to get there before the.
They wanted to
Robertson
do
or
everything
whatever.
first. Yeah, that's kind of how it was.
So they wanted to like properly map the continent. They wanted to like explore the geography and the geology and the like ecology of the Antarctic region that's like south of Australia.
Yeah, I straight up thought before this that Antarctica was just nothing but like scientists, and like I'm pretty sure that's mostly what it is now.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
Because
Maybe some
not
like
gonna
secret
live
military operations.
Yeah, that's
which
what I'm thinking.
There's like a treaty that a bunch of countries have signed where they agreed they wouldn't do that.
yeah,
But
so I think that's mainly the big reason. I was just like,
So they
I
went here
wonder.
to like collect just data. They collected a lot of like biological and geological samples. They found the first meteorite found in Antarctica. That they found it.
Oh.
Yeah, that's when
Okay.
things really started to go downhill.
Oh.
I'm kidding.
Yeah, they found that and
They spiraled
went
into
to hell.
madness. They managed to establish radio connection with
sick.
Australia there.
Okay.
They brought a plane with them, like a scientific
fuck?
plane that they called the air tractor.
The air tractor, boy, let's go.
But unfortunately, it couldn't launch due to a sled that they had attached to it, which
What
was
the
completely
hell?
useless in the first place. It never served any purpose.
They just had this dumbass sled hanging on the bottom of the plane, and they just brought a plane with them.
Yeah, and then it like caught on something and the plane crashed.
What the fuck?
The air tractor was out of the
The air tractor
equation.
just DOA, bro. Fuck.
They split this expedition into 3 groups. One of them was on Macquarie Island, which is way far north, like close to New Zealand.
Oh, okay.
And then there were 2 on the Australian mainland. And then I'm going to tell the story of Douglas Mawson, which is one of those.
In relative terms, how like is Antarctica more east compared to? I raise it that. I'm trying to think.
I don't even know how to like process
Yeah,
it.
that's kind of a weird thing.
it's
'cause,
south of
I don't
everything,
I
but
don't
you
even
can
think
still-
of New Zealand as like that close, but like I'm thinking about it. I'm like, that it probably is the closest country.
Yeah, it's hard to like. It's literally like you say like, where is Antarctica like
Yeah.
in relative to this place? Like I don't know, south.
Yeah, like just like down.
But like there
I
are
don't
places
know.
that are closer than
Yeah.
others, so it's really hard to
It's all
explain.
relative. Yeah.
Like, New Zealand and Australia are one of the like main like bases of operations for a lot of like research programs and stuff.
Yeah.
So,
Okay. That makes
they set out from Australia. It's
There's-
named Australasian Expedition.
I feel like maybe not there. This might just be some random shit. I think that it's there though. It might be a big ass seed vault. Have you heard about this?
I have. I think that's in.
or is that in Greenland or some shit?
I think that's in, like, Greenland or
Okay, that's what I
something.
thought. It was some random shit. I was just remembered it was hella cold in some place, and they were just like put a bunch of seeds there just in case. Storm away for the.
I mean, they could have something like that down there that we don't know about.
I'm sure something like that is.
So Douglas Mawson, he set up his base camp at Cape Denison, which is close to the coast, and this place has the strongest at sea level has the strongest winds on Earth.
Oh my god.
They're called katabatic winds.
They have their own name.
Yeah, they
Oh,
roll.
Fuck.
They come from high elevation, so they roll off of high elevation with the force of gravity. So you can picture like an
okay.
avalanche of wind, and they reach
That
speeds
is
of up to
terrifying.
127 miles an hour.
Oh my
So
god.
those are the conditions that they were working in. Yeah,
Fucking blowing. Oh my god.
and there's like pictures, like old black and white photos of them like having to like climb.
Hanging on parallel to the ground.
Yeah,
Just-
exactly. They're like literally climbing along a level surface with like pickaxes.
I mean, not to laugh at that, but that's so funny.
It's hilarious. Like it's hilarious. I mean, to like look at.
Like to look at now and be like, I'm warm now. I'm having a good time.
So they built like a hut there, and despite these winds, the hut held up, and it is still there today.
Whoa.
It is like a national monument.
Oh,
Like
that's
everything
cool.
inside of it is still intact. All the like perishable like
is
goods
impressive.
that they had, the cans.
That is impressive for not one asshole to have just gone in there and been like,
Yeah, even in Antarctica.
yeah,
Some
even
Americans, no doubt,
right.
for sure.
Yeah, 100%.
But it's like a national monument, like a national heritage site. It's still there today, and
That's crazy.
it still stands despite 127 mile an hour katabatic winds.
So that is, whoa, yeah, to think about a little hut standing in, there are houses that blow down here in less than that. That's
True.
fucking nuts.
Yeah.
Wow.
So they wanted to reach Oats Land, which is a region in Antarctica, and
Oatmeal.
yeah,
Okay.
it's shaped like a
Big ass.
like a pie.
oat.
Um,
Okay.
They divide the regions of Antarctica into wedges, so it's actually like a pie.
Oh, okay.
So
Oh,
this
it's
is
a
like
sick. Hold up.
Sorry.
There you- Oh, okay. Yeah, we're good.
So Mawson and a couple other guys set off on foot for like a minor expedition just for like one season in 1912 to survey some glaciers.
Okay.
And this is when shit really, really starts to go downhill. He brought
Oh,
with him
no.
3 sleds, a bunch of huskies, and 2 men named Belgrave and Ninnis, he was a British Army officer, and Xavier Mertz.
Can I ask you a question about those dogs?
Yes, please.
Do they make it?
Do they make it?
Do they make it?
Well.
Oh.
Well. You know they don't make it. Oh. You know the dogs don't make it.
I hope they might.
They are not prioritized.
I hope they might.
I mean, stay optimistic because we haven't gotten to that yet, but
Maybe they did.
I'm just going to warn you now. You might be disappointed.
Maybe they did, dude.
So he brings Belgrave Ninnis with him and Xavier Mertz, who's a
Also a
Swedish
dope
skier.
name. Belgrave Minnis?
Yeah,
Is that his name?
Ninnis.
Ninnis.
Yeah.
Belgrave.
So they set off on foot with these sleds and dogs to find these glaciers, and
Mm-hmm.
they make steady progress for a while. They're on foot for weeks. They are constantly having like near-death experiences with crevasses.
Oh, okay.
So they're having to like be very careful, like walk in a single file. The person that's in the front
Scary.
has to like signal to people in the back when they've encountered one.
Okay.
Eventually, they reached a glacier, and Mertz, who was in the front, stopped, and they said that he was singing or something. He stopped singing, stopped in his tracks, raised up a pole to like signal to them. They found a crevasse. So they stop. He looks behind him to Mawson, who is in the middle of the line, and he looks behind Mawson. He notices Ninnis is not behind them, and so they're like, "Oh, we gotta go turn around and find Ninnis." They go back like maybe 100 yards, and they look down. And he had fallen into a crevasse that they had crossed over already. They crossed over it safely, but he went down. And I guess with the dogs,
Oh
he had the best dogs with him,
God.
the strongest dogs. He had all the rations, all the supplies, and they're like,
Oh, fuck,
they're like
dude.
a month away from base camp.
Oh my god,
They
that's
spent-
way worse than I thought.
Yeah,
oh
they
my
spent
god.
5 hours calling down to him with no answer, and eventually they were
5
like,
hours, bro. After one, I might be like, oh fuck, he's gone, bro.
"Hey, you know what, Will? I would call to you
Respect.
for at least 6 hours."
Respect, dude. Respect. I respect that.
So eventually they're like, "We got to keep moving. We got to head back. We don't have enough to like go survey these glaciers."
Yeah. We're
It's over.
tapped.
Party's over. We got to
Yeah,
go
we
home.
gotta go home. This is not cool.
But the problem was they only had enough food for 1 week, and it was going to take them at least a month to get back to base camp.
No.
So,
So they surely perished, right?
well, they try to survive. They eventually do have to put down the dogs and eat them.
There it
I'm
is.
sorry about that. I mean,
shit.
like, they're desperate. They eat every part of the dogs, including the liver,
dude.
which is full of toxins and ends up poisoning them.
Ooh, there it goes.
Yeah. So they are suffering from like poisoning from these dogs. The frostbite is causing their skin to completely slough off their body.
Dog
everywhere.
lovers 1, Antarctic explorers 1.
Penguins
1. 0. Still 0 points on the board. Penguins, come on, catch up, penguins.
So Mertz, it's just Mertz and Mawson, and Mertz eventually kind of starts to spiral into a depression.
Yeah,
and he dies in his sleeping bag, and Mawson manages to like drag him out of the tent and like bury him under some ice.
Damn.
So now he's completely alone. Oh yeah, no. Before he died, they're they kind of like have each other's backs. They're working together, and Mawson developed snow blindness, which was apparently really painful. I mean, it hurt his head and shit. And Mertz treated it with a mixture of zinc and cocaine.
Oh my god.
So like,
that'll fucking wake you up, dude.
Yeah. Did they have the coke, like for medical reasons, or did they just have it? Like,
they had it at a party.
And
they
he
were
was
like,
"Hey, I've got the perfect thing." For
you know what this expedition could really use, right?
Hell yeah.
Yeah, coke.
But Mertz does eventually die. I don't know how he died. Probably just
exposure
for the conditions that they were in. It said that he had no skin left on his legs or his genitals or like his arms. And Mawson said that he was experiencing the same thing. So he's like basically a walking corpse. He ends up getting stuck in a snowstorm and spends 5 nights alone in an ice cave. On his way back, missing skin all over his body, all over his face,
this
legs.
gives me fucking goosebumps, bro.
Yeah.
Like I dead ass. I'm like, oof.
And the good thing is he does make it back to base camp with literally nothing left but his just.
He was on empty.
Yeah,
tapped out.
the ice laden equipment that he had with him.
Oh my God.
And the ship had indeed left for the winter.
No.
He saw the smoke on the horizon from the ship.
So he was
leaving.
like.
Yeah, and he gets back to base camp, but they left behind 6 guys at the hut to stay with him, and he wintered with them. They spent the whole winter together, and they said that it was kind of like a pretty good time. Like
That's dope.
He fully recovered from all of his stuff, like the hut life.
God, that poor guy. I mean, I don't know what he was like, but I'm sure. I mean, damn, that's fucking terrible.
They called it hut life.
Hut life.
Hut life. They said it was.
We're on hut life,
Yeah.
man. All right, hut life.
That's like a bumper sticker.
Yeah, that's like Salt Life, dude.
Yeah,
that's the fucking that's the ice version. That's
you put on your Jeep.
Yeah, that's the Jeeps that have fucking sleds on the wheels. that's just what they would be, just Jeeps with sleds. Just like 4 sleds on the bottom, just toboggans.
Hut life.
Hut life, just on the back.
Hey, it's hut life.
Hut life. Oh.
Yeah, they took extra precaution to like celebrate birthdays and holidays and like
that's awesome.
have fun, kind of like you were saying on the ship. They
probably
played some football.
Yeah.
In the 127-mile-an-hour Cataback.
Yeah, just fucking damn our ball again. Shit, how many balls did they have, bro? That's what I gotta wonder too. Cause damn, the winds were probably blowing.
Yeah.
It's like damn, you see me bend that ball? I cornered that shit. Just. Oh my god. Dude, yeah, oh my god, that's harrowing.
So yeah, that's what I've got for the Australasian
Holy
expedition.
shit, dude, that's terrifying. That is terrifying.
Literally, that's only a couple years before. I think it was before the Shackleton expedition.
Wow. Oh my god, that is brutal. That's fucking terrifying to think of. That these guys they just went out like that. That's just how they went.
Yep. Well, did you have any other like stories or maybe some conspiracies or something?
Yeah, I had a little conspiracy
I'd love to
for
hear
you.
I'm not trying to hate on conspiracies, but
come on now, guys. Let's
pretty
be real here. Nah, but sometimes they are real. Sometimes they're not. Sometimes they're a little wild. And now you tell me how you view this one.
Okay.
So, there are said to be pyramids beneath Antarctica.
Oh, I've heard this one, yeah.
Or at least one.
Yeah.
And the expert that talks about it nonstop. quote unquote expert. He talks about this shit.
Is this the guy that has that Netflix documentary?
I think so.
Who says that there was like a lost civilization during the Ice Age in Antarctica, like a global civilization that was wiped out.
Yeah. The so-called expert is just some fucking British guy. Like the way. Okay, so I even wrote down the way he speaks makes me feel like he's plotting something nefarious. So I can only assume that this guy sucks. This man says they dwarfed the pyramids of those in Egypt. They dwarf the. Dude, no even doubt. Those are fucking massive. What are you talking about? How would underwater too? Like, I'm sure the sea level probably rose, but what the hell, you know? So one of the masses that they were talking about that they ended up showing looked so much less like a well-constructed pyramid and more like a fucking learning barn or some, like, okay, so you know there's like, okay, there are these, yeah, so it just looked shitty. You're like, what? So anyway,
I know exactly what you're talking about. The pyramid. There was I saw on Facebook.
You're like, no way. There's pyramids.
Some like hiker, really rich hiker that had the funds to go to Antarctica was like, oh, here's the pyramid that everybody's talking about. And if you actually look at a photo of it in person, it's a mountain.
Yeah, it's just dead. Yeah, and that's what I kind of like came to that conclusion. I was like, wait, aren't mountains like just pyramids? Yeah. Like in a way, like wait, what the fuck? They're just less, I guess, intricate in a way. Maybe more so. I don't know. But so he even says, this man says that it is possible that our ancestors lived and settled Antarctica.
Oh.
He says it's possible. So we're gonna round back to that first part and say, I think so. Mm-hmm. This guy says it. I'm gonna believe it.
I want to believe.
I want to believe it.
So therefore, I do.
But fuck this guy. So he it gets a little interesting when you start to wonder how something that could get, you know, some in such a modernly even inhospitable place. How were they getting, you know, those? How were they getting, you know, if it was a pyramid, so to speak, they had to have been constructed by somebody, right? Yeah. So like, what civilization constructed them? What is this? You know, he doesn't go. I don't know how far in depth he goes. Maybe we'll revisit.
If he's the guy that I think you're talking about, he said that like this global civilization, including the one in Antarctica, was completely wiped out with no trace by rising sea levels.
Yeah. I think yeah. And you're like,
no trace. Like this civilization that is supposedly more advanced than us was completely wiped out by a rising sea level.
Completely wiped out by that. Like doesn't seem to add up a whole lot.
But it's all there.
It's there.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not trying to like. If you really do believe in this, I'm willing to listen. Like, I'm not trying to like shit on it or anything, but
just this one. No, but no, I understand conspiracies have a valuable. We'll end it with this. We'll say, or you know, if you.
What about trolls? Hold on. What about trolls?
Oh, fuck.
I think there could be some trolls out there.
No, you're right. Actually, let me scratch that. Let me put that.
Or Hitler in a submarine. A lot of people believe in that.
What?
A lot of people believe that Hitler is still alive in Antarctica. And they're looking for him.
I knew that the Hitler alive thing was pretty big, but I did not know that it said he's in a sub.
I've heard like submarine, that he's in Argentina.
South America, I've heard, like Argentina.
But there's people that are still on the hunt for Hitler who would probably be like 120 or 130 years old. And I'm just like, hold on, you're telling me that we have found black holes that are millions of light years away, but we haven't found Hitler?
We have not found his fucking body, dude. We never found that shit.
We have found microbes that are like buried under 13,000 feet of ice, but we can't find
one dude.
We can't find Hitler.
We can't find that one guy that got blown up, maybe. Quote.
But I mean, I'm always willing to listen to conspiracies.
Of course,
I'm not trying to like hate
I think that there's valuable knowledge that comes with that inside of skepticism, but you know, at the end of the day, it is just skepticism. So we have to,
Trolls and
yeah, it starts to get into that little territory where, and I'm sure all history starts as purely skepticism or some form of it, but you got, until you go and find it, you don't know. So I don't know, maybe there was some trolls out there, demolishing some shit.
I really hope
dwarves
so, dude. I hope there's
smithing,
That's
why were
what the world
dwarves
needs
always
right
blacksmiths in movies? I wondered that.
Huh?
Have you noticed that dwarves are always like forger?
Well, of course. What else would they be?
What else would they do, dude? They make they work with the metal. They work with their hands.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was like a Tolkien thing or what. Like, I don't know.
Probably.
I assume that it probably was.
Probably.
But yeah, that's what I got for a little conspiracy, for
Cool.
a fun little.
I love that.
Yeah. So if you wanna think about that, maybe just maybe, there's a pyramid underneath you.
Well, I'm sorry that we didn't actually do an analysis of Happy Feet. It's a great movie. I really do love it.
It's a good movie. It is a good movie. Happy Feet 2 is pretty good too, actually, I think.
I have not seen Happy Feet 2.
Anyway, go watch Happy Feet 2, and thank you for tuning in to I Think That Happened.
Hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope you learned something. If you've got any recommendations for topics, of course,
leave them down in those comments. We'll get to them. We will read them. There's like 2 of them right now, so that's it. But we're just, we appreciate everybody listening. Thank you again, and we will see you next episode. All right.